Completing a game without taking any damage. To a lot of people, this is the ultimate accomplishment in gaming. A true display of mastery over the domain that is that game. Some people even forgo leaving their room for years on end in the pursuit of the one run that could bring them the glory of mastering their favorite game. But is this accomplishment really such an important and impressive display of skill? Hell no. At least, I don't think so. As a speedrunner, I've always seen no-hit runs as a passive and boring way of playing the game. Since the goal is not getting hit, that incentivizes playing in the most safe and slow manner possible to ensure that you can get through any section safely. And for the most part, that's true. But on the other hand, I'm talking a lot of shit for someone who's never no-hit a game before in his life. So in an effort to justify my shit talk, I have decided to put my money where my mouth is and attempt one of these no-hit runs to see just how difficult they really are. And I would soon find out that they can be really, really painful. What? Huh? This game is so fucking bad, dude. I set out to prove that no-hit runs are easy by doing my very own run of Resident Evil 4 Remake's recently released Separate Ways DLC on Professional. Before we get into the nitty-gritty, let's talk about exactly what I mean when I say a no damage run. Hi, Professor Waifu here, and I'm gonna illustrate the differences between our two different types of challenges here. Firstly, we have no damage runs. The goal of these runs is to complete the entirety of the game without your health bar ever moving from maximum full. Then we have no hit runs, where the goal is to complete the game without having any enemies interact with you in a negative way. So the difference is, in a no damage run, there are certain circumstances or interactions that would be allowed that would not be allowed in a no hit run, and vice versa. To give an example, RE4 Remake, enemies can push you and shove you around without having your health bar deplete at all. And this would be perfectly allowed in a no damage run, but not a no hit run. Something that's allowed in a no hit run, but not in a no damage run would be standing in fire or lava, some sort of environmental damage. Same thing with poison damage. As long as nothing hits you to get you to take damage from these environmentals, then it's perfectly okay in a no-hit run, even if it depletes some of your health. In fact, a classic example of this is in Dark Souls no-hit runs. Players will intentionally cause themselves to take fall damage so that their health is lowered and they can get benefits from things like Red Tearstone Ring. And this is perfectly allowed and often essential for having a good no-hit run. On top of our two categories that we've established here, there are also two subcategory types for each of these runs. These subcategories are segmented and single segment. Segmented runs are for pussies. That's all you need to know about that for now. We'll go into more detail later. What we're focusing on here are single segmented runs. These are the Giga Chad versions of these runs. And that's what I'm going to be doing today. That's where you complete the entirety of the game in one single segment all the way through without invalidating your challenge. The challenge we're doing today is a no damage run in a single segment format. Surely this would be a challenge that I could knock out in just a couple of days and it would be relatively stress-free. I chose Separate Ways DLC because it's new and popular, so it's gonna make me a lot of money. But also because I just really enjoyed the DLC. Its short runtime and great pacing made me instantly want to speedrun it. And while trying to think of a challenge run to do for this channel, the idea of completing it no damage crossed my mind. Separate Ways only has 7 chapters and has an average runtime of about 5 hours on Professional. The S Plus time for Pro is 2.5 hours, but I knew from experience that a speedrun could easily be under 50 minutes, and that's without any glitches. That being said, I had some experience, but not too much with the Professional difficulty, so I would need to do some routing. Just like in every challenge where you're going to be doing many attempts, you have to plan out the entire run down to the detail. You obviously are going to want to reduce the amount of improv that is needed for a run like this. Unfortunately though, you're not going to be able to do that right out of the gate. You first have to start at a low level of resolution, figuring out where every enemy is and which ones are required kills, figuring out the hard parts of the run and then finding strategies for those parts. I knew that it was very possible that other people had already done this, but I wanted to do the routing from scratch myself, with just my own personal speedrun knowledge. So I went on my way and routed the entire game. and this is the basic route that I come up with. The very first thing you do in the whole DLC is fight Verdugo's adopted stepsister, Peseta, or whatever her name is. I just like to call it easy mode and blast it in the fucking face. The TMP absolutely rips in this DLC, and you start with it, so there is no better weapon for this first fight. I knew it would be simple, so I didn't even bother to properly route this fight. I just freeballed it on my first attempt and made it past no damage very easily. Strutting out of that place like I was the boss, I arrive at the catapult section. You might think that this section is one of those ones that can be quite dangerous, but truly it's not a big deal. After dropping down, I unbox my factory new dragon lore that Daddy Gaben left for me, and make like a CIA agent, giving this Spanish villager some freedom. This stealth kill stops the catapults from alerting. Then we can just run to the end, kicking some women out of our way. 1 chapter down, 6 to go. Chapter 2 starts out with a secret agent Ada stealthing her way through Cancer Canyon from the main game. Up top there are 3 archers. I deduced that we could skip the first one, but I would need to kill the latter 2 or they would pelt me with arrows while I tried to escape. So they were given some democracy as well. After that, I drop down and stealth kill the last guy, before this door. This opens up the section allowing me to collect everything in peace. I knew we would need a lot of money, so I was going to start by grabbing nearly every treasure. Then later on, if I needed to, I could cut some of it out so I could save some more time. This big door is where Utters would make his first appearance in the DLC. This dude is a fucking menace. At first I thought I could just run past as they're all stuck in animations of opening the door. Then I could just flash the other Utters and run past. This worked a few times, but I would quickly rack up many attempts to these guys, just stun locking me with their giant birthing hips. So I opted for a safer strategy, where I would just lure them back and use this explosive barrel. Next, the cabin, I just straight ran past everything on the first try, so obviously that would just be good enough. Then I collected the 4 medallions for the merchant request and made my way to the church. Once here, I had to make my way to the second boss fight. Before that though, I collected all of the boxes and treasures on the way, including this dude's sunglasses. This is when I would arrive at the merchant, and I would steal some strats from my speedrunner friends. By selling the pistol and my knife, as well as herbs and treasures I had collected up to this point, I could upgrade the sniper a ton. 2 damage upgrades, capacity once, and reload speed once. Then I could practically stun lock the boss with the rifle. This boss is one of the more complicated parts of the run. Because it's so early on in the game, you don't have that many resources, meaning you really have to squeeze out your damage. The sniper rifle does 3 times damage to weak points. In this case, that's the fucker's face hole. So it is of utmost importance that you shoot him only in the face. In order to do this, I do what's called pause buffering. Because the pause menu in this game is just a slightly blurred version of what you see when you're not paused, you can freeze the game time by pausing and line up your shots by rapidly pausing and unpausing, ensuring that you don't miss any of your shots. This makes fights like this insanely easier, by reducing the probability of error by a lot. The ideal fight goes as follows. Standing in this corner causes the first attack to always miss, opening up the boss for 4 consecutive headshots. This always causes a stun. Then she sits around 4,300 health. At 4,250 though, the boss will all of a sudden start LARPing as Naruto and create some shadow clones. If done correctly, this first phase shadow clone will not even have time to get to you before you trigger the next one. If it does, you'll have to parry it. The final phase is where things get scary though. The speedrun just bum rushes the boss, ignoring the clones and YOLOing the final sniper shots and knives to finish the fight. I initially adopted this straight up, but this would be the #1 thing that killed my runs in the future. It was a simple adaptation to solve though. Instead of bum rushing for the final phase, I learned that throwing a flash grenade will instantly clear both clones, and they don't have enough time to come back before the boss is dead. And thus finishes Chapter 2. Chapter 3 is really straightforward. After collecting our items, Mendez chases us out of the house. We sell the pistol because it's terrible at stunning and damage and, well, everything, but the TMP will carry us to the Holy Land, blasting anyone away that tries to grab us. When the big cheese stops chasing us, we arrive at the factory, where I stealth kill and snipe my way into Leon's jacket. If you stick around for the after show, I'll stealth my way into Leon's pants. On the way back up, after figuring out where Lewis is, we get ambushed. After grabbing the explosive bow, we have to crank to remove the steam, while 2 chainsaw people chase us. Normally, in a speedrun, you just YOLO it, and you're almost always fast enough to make it through. However, I quickly realized that even a 5% chance of dying here meant that I would die here probably 10 times in a row. So I came up with a more consistent strategy. The US foreign policy strategy, that is. When I arrive back at the Big Cheese house this time, it's dark and spooky. We collect some more stuff and head to the merchant, where we sell a ton of things and upgrade the rifle to max damage. I TMP a few more enemies and head to the Hell Gigante boss fight, which thankfully is quite easy. We can't afford a rocket launcher yet, but that doesn't matter because this fight was already solved by speedrunners way before I attempted this challenge. After dumping 3 mags of TMP ammo, the Plaga will come out, and once it does, you can easily pause buffer snipe it to hell. The flash grenades also do insane damage to the Plaga, and in addition to that, stun the boss for a very long time. With only 2 flashes and like 15 sniper ammo, the dude goes down like a sack of potatoes. And because we're on the roof, he has basically 0% chance to hit us. Now in the castle, starting chapter 4, we get everyone's favorite part of Resident Evil: walking and cutscenes. Thankfully, we can make the walking shorter by going under this table, but we must listen to the best line in the game first. Make more. After much more walking, we get to the next merchant, where we buy some large resources and the flash grenade crafting recipe. This is going to carry us through mid and late game. Up to this point, I did pretty much everything on the first try, but if you know this DLC, you know what's coming next. The Knight's Room. This room is notorious for being brutal. You're locked in a grudge match against 5 armaduras while 2 archers from the outside pelt you with arrows. The strategy for this is a bit crazy. You can instant kill the knights with a flash grenade. You probably knew that, but you can only do it when their helmet's removed. So you need to stun them and kick them to remove the helmet, and then flash to insta-kill them. After the first wave dies, the archers will spawn, and they indefinitely respawn until the knights are dead. But this only happens when both archers die. So what I did is hide behind this pillar like a strong man, so that the left archer can't shoot me, and then kill the right archer. That way, as long as I stay behind this pillar, I won't have to worry about the archers. From here, I could snipe the lone knight and get ready for the final 3. Once they spawn in, I make my way to the back of the room and use 2 flashes to kill the rest of them. As scary as this room looks, with some practice, it actually wasn't that bad. As long as you did the strat correctly, obviously. Immediately following this was the Red Zealot, who can be a huge pain in the ass. I shoot him in the face and then flash him, followed by 2 more face shots and then a knife QTE. Once he's down, it only takes 2 more shots to kill. And from there, we just run to the end of the chapter. Chapter 5 is really long, but the first half of it has nothing to it. You just run around and self-kill a couple of enemies. Once you arrive at the sewer though, there is some more stuff that can happen. Firstly, I cut some of the archers out of the sequence in a shield guy by throwing this grenade. It breaks the lock early, meaning you can skip that part and just go right to the crank. At this point, we have a lot of sniper ammo, and any enemies that are a concern just get opt through mid doors. Next, we upgrade the attach case. Gotta be able to fit my lord in there. Here, you can instantly kill the first Gyarados by shooting him in the Plaga 3 times before he even gets to play the game. If you're an extra good shot, you can collateral both of the Gyarados so that the other one gets hit while he aggroes too. Then I run back and shoot the Plaga 1 more time. If the Plaga's out and in a weakened state, you can throw a flash grenade to do massive damage. This can kill, but often it won't. Then I finish the rest of the room with the sniper or the TMP. Next up is U3, and we can finally afford that rocket launcher. I had previously grabbed both the crown and the necklace, and we're gonna full craft them. We can afford to do that because we grabbed both the Lord and Leon's jacket earlier. That, combined with selling the sniper rifle, gives us an insane amount of money. With this money, we could buy a rocket and the shotgun. This shotgun gets upgraded to max damage, double reload speed, high capacity, and most importantly, max fire rate. I also take the bow out of the box here as well, because it's going to be key to the U3 fight. U3 has a lot of health, and in order to guarantee that we can beat him without taking damage, I employed a few unique strategies. As the fight starts, I instantly shoot the bow. This will always hit him and stun. It does decent damage as well, and buys us enough time to throw a flash. This flash will trigger a kick prompt. 1 shotgun to the face, reload, and kick. Now the trick is to re-stun the boss so fast that he can't attack. We're basically trying to cyberbully him and let him not play the game. We could do this by shotgun canceling. No, Dante isn't showing up here, but it is a similar type of mechanic. By holding sprint and forward, you can interrupt the recovery of the shotgun quicker. That, combined with that maxed out fire rate, means that you can shoot so fast that you stun the boss indefinitely. This has to be paired with reloading on the stuns and then kicking. But if done correctly, the boss won't even get a chance to fight back. Speaking of not getting a chance to fight back, once the boss is done and dusted, we walk a bit more until the next merchant, where we sell the shotgun and buy the auto sniper. We then upgrade the sniper all the way and grab the shield pole charm. This part of the run is pretty simple, but gets really tense at times. We pretty much just kill everything from here on out. Stealth kills when possible, sniper shots when not. It gets tense though because we really get tight on sniper ammo. Chapter 6 arrives at an island where stealth is going to be key. The first 2 rooms can be completely avoided by stealth. After that, we have to go through the gauntlet, which is a very scary part of the run. You need to pass by about 8 Brazilian enemies, 2 of which are udders. Firstly, we need to use the lift to get back to a better vantage point and be able to kill this guy early. He always has a plaga and is directly in the way, so if we don't do this, we'll definitely get hit. Then the strat is to stun the first cowman with the barrel and then run past. On this bridge, I then throw a flash grenade and run past the remaining enemies. The shield guy is far too fat to be squeezed past. The man loves his McDonald's, so I give him some democracy and then blast the cowboy with the bow to clear the final path. This is when the game gets all Resident Evil-y on us again. Lots of walking and spooky horror, ooh. For the most part, this is just the single mothers that are scary. I bait the first one by the door and run past. Then we get to the second, really scary part. This hallway has 2 regenerators in it. The first one is a normal one, but the second one is an Iron Maiden. And this is by far the easiest place to get hit in if done normally. Thankfully, I'm built different, and I rocket this fool. When you kill Iron Maidens, they explode, sending spikes everywhere. In order to stay safe from this and make sure I don't get damaged, I have to make sure the other regenerator is out of the picture. In order to do this, I lure Martha into the fridge and blow her frickin' legs off. This buys me just enough time to hide while the Iron Maiden explodes. This basically is the whole section, at least until the gondola, which gives me a ton of fixed sniper ammo drops, so I can just snipe everything from a really safe distance. Now we show up at the turret section, and I ain't playing all that, so I'm gonna do some tricks to skip this. Not glitches, mind you. No damage runs are notorious for their refusal to do any glitches, as they make the run too easy, supposedly. But after you inspect the turrets, you can then use the crossbow to blow up the guns through the wall. This makes this first section completely free. Because of that, you can just run through the middle and straight to the last turret. After dodging the bat guy, I blow up the barrel and stop any followers, and then blow up the last turret. Or what would be the last turret. However, if you shower and go outside like a normal human being, then you would know that I can't just run to the end, because I'm supposed to go all the way around and turn off a turret that you can blow up, otherwise it'll blast your ass harder than a femboy on a Friday. In order to counteract this, we're going to use the substitution jutsu. This whole time, that bat boy from the beginning has been chasing me. I bait him into another attack, and then flash him. Then I can kick him into the laser instead. The turret will shoot him, and while it is, I can just run past. A little tricky, but not too bad. This is followed up by an appearance from the TMNT gang. Finally, Chapter 7, what would be one of the hardest chapters, if you didn't implement the strategy that I came up with. Total annihilation. At this point, I just kill literally everything with the sniper rifle. Leave no survivors. This easily takes me all the way to Sadler, where I blast him with another rocket, leaving only the final run to the end, which in classic Resident Evil fashion is a timed escape that gives you so much time to escape that you can go AFK for half of it and easily make it still. And that was pretty much my route. It sounds simple, well, at least to me it does, but when I started to actually attempt it, there was something that came up that was gonna cause a lot of problems. Normally, this is where I would segment into the comment of the day and answer one of your guys' questions, but I don't really care what you have to say, and this is my show, damn it, so I'm gonna go on an unhinged rant instead. In my first attempts, I figured this would be easy. I would finish this in no time flat, but I quickly realized that the game is not consistent at all. Fucking everything is random. Enemy AI is random. Almost every item drop in the game is random. Enemy stun is random. Hell, even your aim is random. I love Bloom. What a good mechanic. Oh! Skill-based game. I trolled. Yeah, I trolled. Classic. What? How did you hit me? What a good game. Yeah, this is such a good game. Bro, I got hit by a fucking axe thrower? You were kidding me. So just because I had to test something maybe 10 or 20 times and never had a problem did not mean in any capacity that it was going to be consistent or safe. You might think that just because you did something 20 times in a row without failure, that means you're safe to do it in a single segment run. Well, that's where you would be wrong. At least in a game like RE4 Remake where everything is random. That sample size is much too small. But at the same time, no one has time to test every single encounter in the game 1,000 times. So what do? Well, you run the game and do runs, and every time you see something new, you alter the strategy a little bit to try and account for whatever meme happened this time. No matter how much you test though, there is always a chance that there is no 100% safe strategy for any given room, and that at one point you're gonna have to start playing the odds. That's not a huge deal if you only have to do it a couple of times throughout the run. But if you have to do it a lot, it starts to add up really quickly. Let's go back to the whiteboard for a second. That being said, the whiteboard is back, and it's time to go more in depth about these two different types of runs. If you remember earlier, we have segmented runs and single segment runs. Single segment runs meaning you do the entire run in one go, and if you ever mess it up, you have to restart the entire game. Segmented runs, on the other hand, is baby shit, where you break the run up into individual segments and then do the run in each segment individually and then cut the run together to make it seem like one seamless run. Now, normally segmented runs are reserved for challenges that are insanely difficult and especially random. Ones where there would be no logistical way for you to do them in a single segment. A good example would be doing a no damage run of a hit scan game like Call of Duty or Halo, where it's simply not logistically possible to be able to beat the entire game without getting hit when hits come from seemingly nowhere at all times and are potentially unavoidable. It would need to be insanely lucky to go a single segment without taking damage in a game like Halo, and it would be astronomically impossible to do that in the whole game in one segment. That's not the only reason someone would do a segmented run though. Oftentimes people do segmented runs of challenges that are probably too easy to be done segmented. Like doing no hit for Devil May Cry 1. It is definitely something that's very possible to be done in a single segment, and lots of people will claim to do it in a single segment, but most of the runs are done segmented. The common practice here would be to break the game down into its 23 missions and then no hit each individual mission, taking as many tries for each mission as necessary to accomplish the no hit. The problem with this is not everyone that does segmented runs claims that they are segmented. A lot of people will do segmented runs, post the whole video where everything's edited together, and then claim them as single segments. And it's pretty hard to tell the difference for a casual viewer unless it's explicitly stated that the run is done segmented. The reason this distinction is important is obviously single segment runs are a lot more impressive and more difficult because they require consistency across the entirety of the run. You have to have a high level of execution and sometimes a high level of luck in order to be able to complete the challenge across a single segment. Segmented, on the other hand, is so easy a baby could do it. You could blindfold a baby and give it enough segments, and eventually, just by hitting random buttons, it will complete the no damage run. You just have to break the sections down into smaller and smaller sections until it becomes manageable for just about anybody. That means that challenges like this that are done segmented often have such a low barrier for entry that it's just about how much time you're willing to put into it to grind out each segment. And also, segmented runs, especially no hit or no damage runs, don't require any sort of consistency in the strategies. So you might see some strats in a segmented no damage run that would not be possible to do in a single segment run because the probability of it working is not near 100%. So if you were to do that strategy about halfway through the run, it would be far too risky in a single segment run. In my opinion, the solution for this is if it doesn't explicitly say single segment, then I would just assume any challenge run you see online is segmented. And if it doesn't have a live webcam or was done on a live stream or has some sort of overlapping timer throughout the whole thing that's obviously done in real time, or even live commentary, then I would assume that the run is probably segmented. I would also like to point out and make very clear that I don't really think there's anything wrong with doing a segmented run. It's a great way to practice for doing a single segment run, and for a lot of people, all they really care to do is to be able to complete the challenge segmented. What I do take issue with is when people do a segmented run and then claim it to be single segment, or just omit that it was segmented and have people assume it was done in a single segment. That's disingenuous, and I think it really makes the scene look bad. The fact that I'm doing this run in a single segment creates a whole heap of issues that I'm going to have to overcome here. Primarily, the game has to function for the entirety of the playthrough. In a game like Resident Evil 4 Remake that's random as hell, that means that I need to create consistent strategies for every possible interaction that I can have throughout the entire playthrough. And that also means that things like shooting an enemy 100 times and having them not stun need to not happen, and knife prompts need to work, and I can't accidentally crit somebody in an unfortunate situation, causing them to hit me. These sorts of things in normal gameplay, and hell, even speedruns, are usually not that big a deal, because the margin for error for those runs is not as high. But with a no-hit run, if anything goes wrong at all and I get damaged or hits, then I have to start the whole game over again. That can cause some of these things to completely ruin the experience when they're only minor infractions in other sorts of scenarios. If anyone has tips for erasing better on a whiteboard, let me know, because this thing sucks. If we do a bit of math and we have 40 sections in a game that have potential to screw you over, but it's a 95% chance that they don't screw you over, then that means in order to complete a single segment run successfully, you need to have all 40 of these instances not screw you over. This is basic consecutive probability math. The way that this works is you take 95, because that's the percent chance you have of it going well. And if you want something that has a 95% chance to happen 40 consecutive times in a row, then what you do is you take 95 to the power of 40. That means 95 times 95 times 95, 40 times. And if you do that, then you end up with a number roughly 13%. And this means that 13% of the runs that you do will get you the positive 95% chance outcome for all 40 events consecutively. And because the run is done single segment, that means all 40 of the events have to go your way across the entire run in order for the run to be completed. And that means that only 13% of the runs that you do with these odds will even have a possibility of being completed. And this is not accounting for your own personal execution. So this quickly becomes a problem, because if there are 40 of them with a 95% chance, then that's really unlikely you're able to do it. So the goal is that when you're doing runs, every time you encounter something that gives you a small percent chance of failure, then you relab the strat, you try to find an alternative solution to remove this from the pool. So maybe at your first attempt, there are 40 different things with a 5% chance to screw you over. But at attempt 100, you might have broadened it down all the way to 20 things at a 5% chance, because you've solved about half of the things that are wrong with the run, half of the potential problem points. And this would double the percentage of you having a successful run due to pure luck. So that would give you a 26% chance. My handwriting is awful, please excuse me, but that would give you a 26% chance. Meaning that 1/4 of all of your runs would have enough luck to be completed at the very least. This also means that longer runs are substantially harder than shorter runs when it comes to doing a no damage or no hit run, because the longer the run, the more of these are going to be in the run. This also is impacted by how random or consistent the game is. A game that is much more consistent in its mechanics and enemies is going to have a much smaller number here. And some games might even have a number of 0, where every single thing in the game is solved. But the only way to know this is to do the testing yourself. And since you need a really large sample size and a ton of different diverse and strategy optimizations, you're not gonna have this at 0 at the start of the run, even if it's possible. And that's only accounting for things that are legit random. There are tons of skill-based elements that you need to complete too. Speaking of, I started runs before actually figuring out a strategy for the first boss, so I spent quite a few of my first attempts doing that. The first full strategy turned out like this. As far as it being a movie, I wasn't very invested, you know. Yeah, no glitches. Otherwise, I just do the out of bounds there. It'd be way easier. Then I quickly realized that my cabin strat sucks as well, so I had to fix that. I did so by shooting the barrel through the gap in the fence that aggroes all the enemies so that I could open the door for free, then sniping both the guy on the bridge and the archer at the end. Also at the start of the second chapter, I started using the barrel to kill the first wave, then run past. It took me 32 attempts to figure these things out. This eliminated most of the RNG points up to the second boss. There was still a chance that the archers got me at the end of chapter 1, but I wouldn't figure that out for a while. At attempt 50. That's the first time I got hit there. I'm surprised, it took 50 attempts. Attempt 42 would be the first to make it past the second boss. In fact, it made it all the way to Knights. Or, almost. It somehow died to the trap. Let's not talk about it. Bro, I literally hit them all, what do you mean? The very next attempt would make it to the Knights, and let's just say, they have some very generous hitboxes. What? Huh? This game is so fucking bad, dude. At the end of the first day of runs, we would do 54 attempts, and our furthest run was to the Knights in chapter 4. Attempt 63 would be the next of the best attempts. The first to make it past the Knights. This run would meet its unfortunate end immediately after at the Red Zealot though, where like always, the knife prompt would simply refuse to work. A shot. Oh, this is not good. Bro, you're fucking kidding me. This game is dog shit, brother. I decided to continue the run just to practice the rest of it, and I got hit next at U3. Oh man, I couldn't even see the attack coming. At run 70, I would once again lose a run to the Knights. This game is terrible. On day 2, I started the day with a lot of practice on the second boss, as I lost over half of my 80 attempts to this thing. And that was mostly a skill issue. It didn't seem to help me much though, because I rarely got runs past this point, and at the 100 attempt mark, I was so over this boss. Dude, I'm literally waiting 12 years attack. I just want to parry you. I know if I... This game is so bad, dude. Like, I can't run because if I'm running, then I can't parry because you can't parry in directions you're not facing and you can't parry while holding sprint. So if I try to run, he's gonna hit me in the back. But if I stand and try to parry, he's never gonna fucking parry. He's never gonna attack. He just stand there forever. Literally forever, dude. Like, oh my god, just stand there forever, never attack, dude. Most passive boss fight, dude. I love it. So attempt 81 was looking good until dynamite. Dude, I'm literally spamming R. Why can you not crouch while running in this game? This game is so bad. Like, literally the worst piece of media ever made. And I'm done for the day. Day 3 started with yet another practice run, and on run 111, I started playing even safer before Gigante with the sniper. Not that it always helped. This dude's gonna hit me. Dude, this game is so bad. That's so sick. I left the room and re-entered, and because of that, the enemy AI broke and they just AFK'd in that room. The game literally broke because I backtracked. Fast forward to the next day, on attempt 125, I learned that getting a random critical hit on your kick on the second boss does 10 times its normal damage. That combined with throwing a flash on the second phase of the boss made the thing completely free. This greatly increased my success rate past this boss, and if I beat this boss, I almost always made it at least to the Knights section. I also started using 3 flashes in Knights instead of 2, making this section much easier as well. The only downside to this was that all these extra flashes were draining my gunpowder, making it harder to have enough sniper ammo in late game. Attempt 131 would be the first to take advantage of all these new strategies and even make it past U3. I figured out that once I got past U3, the hard part of the run was over. The rest of the game, I just needed to play very safe and kill nearly everything with the sniper. Because of the lack of gunpowder that I mentioned earlier, though, this could be a bit of a problem if I didn't get good RNG drops. Later in Chapter 6, in the Double Trouble Utters room, tragedy would strike. The pig didn't get stunned by the flash. This game is so bad. This game is dog shit. This game is dog shit. How the fuck is he not flashed? Okay, well, all good. Even though close by and in direct sightlines of the flash grenade, the cow behind me did not get flashed. I checked into game files and the flash folder is empty. That shit is placebo. I swear they just don't work. So my man Naruto sprinted up behind me and blew up my back. It was a new personal best, way further than my previous run, but I had been robbed, and that had to be it for me today. The very first thing I did the next day was find out a strategy for this room. I figured out if I throw the flash on the ground instead of the air, there is a lot higher chance of the pig getting flash. And if I knife the shield guy, he gets out of the way a lot faster. All that was left was to try it in an actual run and find out that there's 6 more ways that it can screw me. How did this miss, by the way? Oh, that's not good. This is when attempt 139 would happen. Attempt 139 is a very special attempt for me, because it's the attempt that would get the furthest. I successfully completed double Garradors, then U3, and even the double Utters room. This would be my furthest run yet, my first time rocketing to Iron Maiden, and my first time doing the turret skip. And yet, all were successful. All that was left was Chapter 7. And things were going great. I rocketed Sadler and made my way to the end of the game. At this point, all that is left is 2 tentacles and a horde of enemies. I had a heavy grenade, and I had tested that if I used the heavy grenade on the tentacle, it would stun every enemy long enough for me to run into the elevator and start finishing the game. But then, this happened. I got in the elevator and well, nothing. The game wouldn't let me press the button. I had done this dozens of times before without fail, but for some reason the game just said no, and I got hit by the very last alive enemy in the entire DLC. There is no way, dude! There is no way! This game is so fucking bad! Why can't I play it? Just press the button! Literally just press the button! It wouldn't let me press. This game is so fucking bad. This game is so it's literally the worst game ever made. That's when my perspective changed a bit. The challenge no longer was about playing good for the entirety of the game. It was more about seeing if the game could function properly for the entire playthrough. It was no longer in my hands. It was up to the game. Could I play for an hour and 20 minutes straight without an enemy hitting me through a wall? Or a button not working? Or a knife prompt not working? Or just not having enough ammo drops? That being said, my next good run at 147 would die to karma and a massive skill issue. This had nothing to do with the game. You're kidding, dude. I hate this. Next up, at attempt 149, I would get all the way to Chapter 7 after a very clean turret skip. Near the start, there are a ton of enemies to kill, and in order to do so, I need a lot of sniper ammo. And in this run, I had gotten particularly unlucky with sniper ammo drops, so I was running very low. I tried to craft more, but I was out of gunpowder. So I decided that I would go back to the merchant to buy more before spawning in Utters in the final wave. So I crouch underneath the trip mine and this happens. Fuck, I don't have enough gunpowder. I'm gonna play it super safe. I'm going. What? What? I'm going to the bathroom. This game is dog shit. Literally, what? What? On the replay, you can clearly see all of Ada's model is way underneath the red line. So, yeah, this game sucks. Speaking of this game sucking, on attempt 154, I made it to the regenerators. When this happened, this game is so bad! In slow-mo, you can see I shot this enemy 13 times with the TMP, and he never stunned. This enemy can stun in as little as 1 TMP bullet, so that was a bit unlucky. On the 7th day, on attempt 172, I would troll and not read the U3 fight correctly, and he would hit me. I trolled. Yeah, I trolled. On 184, I would make it past U3 for the first time in over 45 attempts. This is when a new meme would arrive. I shot Utters in the foot with the explosive bowgun, and you guessed it. He just didn't care. Bro, this game is dog shit. Like, look at how dog shit this game is. How are you not stunned? Very fun encountering new RNG memes almost an hour into the run. Speaking of new memes, on 185, I critical hit the Gyarados, killing him in 2 shots instead of 3, completely ruining the strat for the room. A very skill-based game, I assure you. I crit. That's not good. At attempt 199, I would get all the way to chapter 6, and it was time for turret skip. I was anxious, and I didn't think about the angle I was kicking the enemy, so I kicked him too far to the left, leaving me no room to walk around the turret fire. Crit, please. Okay. Next, on run 208, I would make it once again to chapter 7, and right before finishing Sadler, I ran past the Novistadors, which I had assumed could not go past the first pillar set, because I had never seen it in my hundreds of speedruns, but you guessed it. For real though, that one's my bad for not testing it enough, I guess. Wait, what? You can go over that wall? We would then again, on 218, become incredibly unlucky, and during the turret skip, critical hit the enemy into the laser, instantly killing him so the turret won't shoot at him. Goes through the wall. And he fucking dies. This game is awful. Finally, on attempt 233, or more commonly known as attempt 2323, because I fat fingered the attempt counter, everything went as planned. Placenta was dealt with handily, the knights cooperated, the knife prompt on the Red Zealot actually worked, the double Gyarados wasn't a crit, U3 got stomped, Utters chose to be flash and actually stunned, the regenerators got rocketed, and I got 2 enemies with the wrong attack on the turret skip. But I was prepared and I didn't crit the kick. I shot the mine instead of going under it this time, just to be safe. I had enough sniper ammo, and finally, jump scare. 154 Novies. Oh my god, he didn't die. That just gave me a heart attack. Novies. And I killed everything before trying to get into the elevator. And it was done. At attempt 233, nearly an extra 100 attempts after I had basically already completed the challenge, 4 days later, I did it. Separate ways professional, no damage, no saves in 1 hour and 12 minutes. Oh, GG, fuck this game. Oh, I'm so glad it's over, finally. Attempt 2,323. Finally, bro. It should have been like attempt 139, but you know, whatever. I'll take the extra 600,000 attempts. It's fine. All right, so now the challenge is a little bit over and done with. I can go on a bit of a rant. So here it is. I'm not the only person to complete this challenge single segment. I found at least 2 people who had done it before me single segment. However, I didn't use any of their strategies and blah, 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 because I wanted to route it myself. I feel like that's an integral part of doing the no-hit experience, is routing it yourself. At least in the 2 experiences I've had at trying to do it before, that's what I did, and I found it the most fulfilling, so that's what I did. However, I did do it in about half the time that the other people did it in, so it is by far the fastest no damage run of Separate Ways, no save, professional difficulty, and that's pretty cool. My biggest critique of no damage and no hit runs, having done a couple of them now, not successfully, this is my first successful one, but attempting some in a couple different games, is that they feel pretty inherently unskill based. Obviously, you need to be skilled enough to reach that minimum threshold for being able to beat the game without taking damage, but once you get there, a lot of the journey of the process is just grinding through random encounters and like just random bullshit that can kill your run out of nowhere instantaneously. And that can be insanely frustrating and unfun, because a lot of these games are not built to have a high level of consistency or reliability within their mechanics or their enemies. So a lot of it is not really up to you. On top of that, games malfunction all the time. Stuff like knife prompts not working or tripwires exploding when they shouldn't for no reason. You know, stuff can just completely screw you because the game decides to not function over the course of your run. And that, because the margin for error is so small, requires you to restart the entire game over again. The combination of that margin of error being so small and the fact that there is so many things that can happen that could screw you over make it a lot less engaging as an actual challenge for me. Something like speedrunning feels a lot more skill-based because you can build mastery over every little nook and cranny of the game and squeeze a little bit more time out of it. But in a no-hit run, you either get hit or you don't, and the tension just kind of dissipates. When on a good pace no-hit run, I don't really feel anxious or excited. I just kind of am like, okay, I'm doing no hit. And then when the no hit run fails, it happens so quickly that I don't even have anxiety about it usually. I usually will get hit by something that I had no idea was coming, that I couldn't possibly have reacted to. And so when it happens, it's just like, oh, I guess I gotta start over again. And that ends up making the whole experience a lot less fun for me sometimes. Would I say that it was an enjoyable experience? Yes. But would I say I had fun? Also, yes, but it's kind of like going to the gym, you know? The minute to minute, not that fun. It could be quite painful and definitely tilting. But at the end of the day, after it's all said and done, am I glad I did it? I would say yeah. Personally, I don't think no runs are anywhere near as impressive as a high-level speed run, let alone a world record. I think the barrier for entry for the execution on that kind of run is just a lot lower because it doesn't get optimized by doing it many, many times in a row. And that's fine. I don't necessarily think that they have to compete with each other. I think they're both cool and unique ways of playing the game that require a higher level of mastery, and I'm all for that. I do like to shit on no damage and no hit runs because I think it's funny, but I'm not so much of a loser that I actually care about what people do in their free time, and I'm not gonna shame anybody for doing those things. I just think it's weird that some people like to make a value judgment as though one is more difficult than the other, when the answer is obviously that speedrunning is more difficult. Hell, it only took me like 200 attempts to do this when it would probably take me about 10,000 attempts to get a world record or a high level time in some of the more competitive speed games out there, and a lot more time investment and a lot more knowledge required. That being said though, it was a fun experience and I'll definitely do it again, even though it was pretty fucking painful. Thanks so much for watching, stay stylish, and go do something hard. It's good for you. Oh, also, if you enjoyed the whiteboard shenanigans, there's more of that on the archive channel. I go on some pretty big rants, and let me know if you like it. Maybe I'll do it more often. I think that I could definitely illustrate my point a little bit better when I literally illustrate the point.